Skipping branches like squirrel, baby.
Okay, go ahead. All
Oh
right.
man, ladies and gentlemen, fellow human, welcome to another crazy already episode from Disorganized Productions. It's part two of a
Right.
very special guest, and to be honest with you, we hooked up several times throughout throughout the last couple of hours, days, to get this fixed. But somehow the time schedule is screwing us up all the time. But please, a warm welcome for Nathaniel Gillis.
Thank you, brother. It's great to be with you. And oh my goodness, this is yeah. I apologize for being so late, but I love you to death. You're one of my favorite hosts, and I'm excited to get into the research, my man.
Oh, how was your time in England in Manchester? Because you were my special birthday present, right? And I think a week
Oh yeah.
later you went to Manchester for the first time out of America and to do a lecture about
Hmm.
the stuff that you're investigating. And I'm very curious about that.
Yeah. It was a blast. It was an out of body experience from the beginning to the end. It's a different world, you know. I remember getting into the wrong side of the car over and over and over again. Yeah. And I felt like an idiot, but it was amazing. I got to meet some of, if not the best researchers in the world, Steve Marrow, Barry Fitzgerald, of course, my buddy Paul Sinclair, Mark Olley, and the Kinsella brothers. It was just an all-around great experience. And I know it meant so much to me because for the very first time I got to meet a hero of mine, you know.
How did that
Yeah.
felt?
And that was oh it was an out-of-body experience within an already out-of-body experience, right?
Like
And
limbo?
it was incredible. Yeah. It was like, yeah, Inception. No,
Yeah.
um, but I loved it, and I got to pick their brains, you know, and we had conversations that are they were more in depth than most conversations I've been able to have here in the States with other researchers. So and of course the food was good. The food was, you know, I had some gravy and chips and gravy, I think it was.
Huh?
But overall, it was an incredible experience, and I may be going back to film a lecture series, but that's still in the talks. So
Wow. That sounds good. I mean, last time when we
yeah.
talked, I had something with the word fascinating. I was listening to the episode today
Hmm.
just to prepare a little bit. I never
Right.
ever listen normally to my own episodes because, well, I just said it and I just, you know, bring the shit out.
Yeah.
But it's just
I'm the
like,
same
oh
way. It
my
freaks me out.
God. I was only babbling like, oh, fascinating, fascinating. It is fascinating to me, but talking to the word so much, it's just like if you say something very, very good and then you end with some cursing, it doesn't make sense, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
we,
Well,
yeah, go
good.
ahead.
No, I enjoyed it. I had a blast, and I'm thankful for a mutual friend for
Oh,
setting this up. You know, that was
wait, I'm gonna hop on to my other internet connection because I see that my internet is a little bit unstable, but that will be solved in a few seconds. Right now, yes. Sorry to interrupt you.
it's okay. Yeah, but so I was saying, I don't know if you heard me or not, but I'm glad that we have a mutual friend in common, and that he was able to hook us up, man. It's always cool.
Right. And he had some crazy experiences too. He was on Shane Jones, you know, Inquiries
Hmm.
of Reality, of Our
Hmm.
Reality and Bizarre Encounters. I was there. Well, I did a show with him the other day.
Okay.
Um, and we were talking also about some stuff that's very connected to this to the paranormal that you encounter, right?
Hmm.
And while I was listening to the episode today from us that we did, I had something popping up in my mind because we were thinking about, and also what Shane Jones said. It seems like there's a layer of this reality, just like a VHS tape. And when you,
Mhm,
in the early days, when you recorded something like a TV show and then you record something over it, sometimes
mhm,
the old stuff comes through, you know? Um,
mhm,
and I was talking with Shane about it. So, and we were talking about it on the first episode too, about
mhm,
that these dimensions are woven together, and somehow it seems also now that they they come together. They people see them more and more often. Like, oh, I saw a
mhm,
ghost, or I saw some entities, or I saw something going on that wasn't going on for a long time.
mhm.
What's your take on that?
I think sometimes the veil thins, but there are other cases that include the phenomenon just courting our human condition to see how much of it we can perceive, and I think that's an important nuance. But what I've been doing as of late is questioning, at a certain point in the research, you've poured over copious amounts of case studies, and seemingly know some of the capabilities of this intelligence. And then at a certain point, I'm like, okay, now that we do know that, we can prove it. What does this even mean for our species? I mean, if it's precognitive, if it knows the future to a certain degree, what does that mean for free will?
Hmm.
Right? And it's almost as if we're living in an artificial habitat, and from time to time, the caretakers come in and out of our reality and make eye contact with us. And so learning about some of the capabilities of the phenomenon, it's like, all right, we know at least in some cases that these beings will manifest as deceased loved ones, lovers, just the list goes on, guides. And there seems to be no intention outside of deception, to where once we see beyond the mask, it's like, okay, now that we've proven you lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the need for that? Why is the deception so present within the phenomenon?
Right.
And so this constant act of obfuscation, wherein we know we're in the presence of something, but can we actually trust our eyes, our ears, our senses? And so at a certain, like I said before, at a certain point in my research, I'm like, okay, can the phenomenon create physiological constructs? Can it create manifest apparitions? Just as in times past where it has appeared as deceased loved ones and guides, what if that is just one branch from the same tree? And then now we have to go deeper and say, okay, how much of hauntology, the study of hauntings, how much of hauntology has been literally fabricated by this phenomenon in order to author its own mythology within our species? Right, and so that's why I believe, again, in order to hide from us, it has diversified its identity. And now me and some other researchers in the field, even in the UK, we're asking the question, okay, now that we know it has the capabilities to do these things, these manifestations, how much of these manifestations can we trust? Are they actual entities? Right? Are they ghosts? Are they real apparitions? Or is this phenomenon using that pen to construct and even reconstruct
Mm-hmm.
our understanding of reality?
Oh. That
Right?
touch base
That
on
it's
that touch
deep.
base on what we talked about on the last episode, that uh eventually researchers put it all like, oh, this is a separate thing that's going on,
Of
and then
course, my
another
friend.
thing, but then you connected all the dots. Like, is it like
Right.
several entities, or is it just one that keeps on popping on different occasions and different with different factors and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's because it's like calling a conglomerate or some like calling Costco and getting the help desk at customer service. Press one. Doop. And we fed into the lie. And again, I know some researchers suggest that this is an accident or this is some kind of human projection on our part. I don't believe that's the case at all.
Hmm.
This phenomenon, you're gonna be passionate now, man. This phenomenon not only knows what we would believe, oh, it's an apparition, but it has hacked our belief system to the point it knows what we would find worthy
Hmm.
of believing in. How? And so this implies this symbiotic relationship where it's not just the manifestation, the cognitive interface. It's not just I am dear Aunt Edna that's occurring, but there are cases where the phenomenon will manifest to the experiencer and then start manipulating the emotions within them to agree with the image they're projecting. So, my friend, this is where we are as a species. We're in the median. We're in that paradigm, that dynamic between, right, not just thinking,
Mhm.
but being thought for.
Right.
And so that's this, again, the tailoring of the image to the experiencer. And then in a certain time period, boom, now it's okay, yes, you are. You are what you appear to be. And a part of this does bleed into the commandeering of consciousness. And we've seen this not just in hauntings, possession cases, but even in the UFO abduction phenomenon,
Hmm.
where, as in, like, okay, you have an experiencer and they're interfacing with the entity. And the immediate reaction is, this is not my mother. It's like Dr. Carla Turner when she was abducted as a child. Oh, I'm your mother. No, you're not. And then there's a certain time in Barry Fitzgerald mentions this too, where out of nowhere, suddenly the experiencer begins to have downloads and emotions that are implanted into them, into their consciousness.
Right.
And it's designed to agree and accommodate that entity's presence. So within our species, there is this, again, this paradigm. I call it in my book the protocol of belief,
Mhm.
where it's manifesting to and then it's manifesting through. And so people confuse, okay, that's a tulpa, it's a thought form in a way,
Yeah.
but the image needs to be believed in. And it's in that paradigm that we fight. And that's where I'm at now. It's not just, okay, I want to manifest as this entity. I'm going to manipulate your emotions and I'm
Hmm.
going to cause you to believe in the image I am manifesting. Um, a good friend of mine, it's an interesting case study, but a good friend of mine had broke up with his girlfriend. And I do so many shows. So if I repeat myself, just act like you didn't even see it and we'll just
All
move
right.
on. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking, brother. But yeah, he had broke up with his girlfriend. And he's like, months later, he goes, I moved to a different part of town, a new address, new phone number, new apartment, new job, all that. And he goes, I got off work, opened up a beer. Next thing I know, knock at the door. And it's the ex-girlfriend. And he's like, okay, what are you doing here? Well, she seduces him. But in the middle of the night, he wakes up. She's not there. He
Wow.
spoke to her, talked to her, right? Talked to her. They went to bed together. Next thing you know, she's not there, and there's no evidence of her being there. Just his personal experience. And so a couple of weeks go by, and so he's contacting her contacts, her friends, some old friends they had in common. Finally gets her number. He calls her up. Hey, well, what was last night about? I don't know what you're talking about. No. Well, no, that wasn't me. I told you we're done. Don't ever contact me again. That's why I blocked you, right? You moved across town. I have my life. You have your life. Leave
Right.
me alone. That wasn't me. Now, this bleeds into simulants and how the phenomenon will implement someone that appears similar, something that looks similar to the naked eye. And this is why I wholeheartedly believe that wholeheartedly rather that just because it looks like a plane in the sky
Doesn't
doesn't
mean
mean
it.
it is.
Right.
Right. And so then this leads me into this kind of this paradigm where in many cases the phenomenon will blind us with our own vision.
Uh-huh. Or do we
Where
blind ourselves with our
there
own
we go.
vision?
right. You're exactly right. Yeah, yeah. So it's coming to and then coming through. And so there are times where the phenomenon will take pieces of our belief system from our consciousness and apply that to the image they're employing, where it's symbiotic. Because, and this is also why in times past we have experiencers who cannot divorce themselves from that manifestation. Why?
Hmm.
Because that was partially manifested from the experiencer themselves.
Right.
And so this is, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I was thinking about it because it's something that you could visualize for yourself, even if
Yeah,
you are daydreaming, right? But the
right,
process of your own thoughts within daydreaming. So when you have an intention, when you go daydreaming, or when you go, I'm going to take like a half an hour, uh, sit back and just do a little snap. What's it called? Um,
yeah,
yeah, then you can implement your thoughts about what you're thinking about, but you can also visualize what you think about. And then it
mm,
starts to,
correct,
you start like drawing something on a paper, and it comes like a text, or it comes like a
right,
statue or whatever. So the thing, and that's very interesting for me, is how many of these sightings that are most of the time from individuals alone, that they
right.
gonna tell you that they had experienced, are made up by themselves, but experienced like it was real.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a shared experience
Mm.
between us and the phenomenon.
So,
It's
so
very
could
strange. I mean, look what we're talking about. This is weird stuff.
right, and I love weird stuff.
You're like, yeah, let's rock on. Yeah, I mean, but it gets into this concept of reality. It's like, all right, so if this is a shared experience where it's not just manifesting to, it's manifesting through. And so at a certain point, it does require an investment from the experiencer. And so like I had a case study. It was a preacher that was driving down the road and he saw he was driving, I think it was Tennessee. Him and his wife were on vacation, and they saw this beautiful lake. Sunlight was hitting it just right. The reflection was beautiful. They took out their phone, screen, boom, boom, start snapping photos.
Right.
All right, maybe look at the photo. There is a metallic cigar-shaped object hovering over the water. Could not be seen by the naked eye. Both of them, all they saw was the lake, but the camera caught a UFO or UAP now, right?
Uh-huh.
Hovering over the water. And so it implies that we do not see them when they don't want us to. But when we do see them, that may not be what they really look like. Another reference to of my brother, where he was working with a group of researchers in, I think it was the Deep South, where they were placing cameras on as many trees and as many light posts as they could find. And so they were capturing UAPs on camera. And one UAP started out on the left side of the camera as a ball of light. By the time it made it from the far left to the middle, it had contorted itself into a plane. And so they're capturing this in real time. Then by the time they get it, it's a plane. So this again, this kind of leans into the idea that obviously it's the observer effect, no doubt.
Yeah.
But what disturbs me the most is again that it doesn't just know what we believe in, the archetypes it leans into and out of, but it knows what we would find worthy of believing in. And to
Yeah,
where
and belief is a big thing.
there we go. There we go. Right. It's almost like okay, let me say this. When I was in the UK, I gave a lecture and everything, and I was talking to this individual, and he had never heard of my research or probably even me. And so I'm like, okay, so a lot of the stuff is fresh. So I went down to some of the basics, the research I was doing years ago. I was trying to construct this theory, and by the time I was able to articulate it, I'm watching his eyes, and he got it. And when he got it, conversation's over. I mean, it was, hey, hey, how you doing? How you doing? And
Right,
then it
right.
was, wait a minute. Okay, now we're getting it. And so there are versions of reality that are manufactured, constructed by
Mhm.
this intelligence to cause us to think this is real, and it's not. Or at the very manifestation of it is not at all what's present. And so what do I mean? Just because it is the most visible doesn't mean it's the most present. Just the right? Just because that's what we yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right? Oh, well, that's what it is. No, that's the most perceivable to our senses. And yet there's something beyond that manifestation that is targeting us. And this is why it's so crazy to think about. But in times past, we kind of built, not us, but ufology, ontology, built our research on what is discernible, what immediately meets the eye, what
Mhm.
we can touch. And okay, I sensed this. And that's fine. But the phenomenon hacked our belief system to the point that it realized that it doesn't need to hide from us to hide from us. It
Exactly.
can manifest as something, which is strange. Because what kind of a species does that? If it wanted to hide, it would. It would just never be discernible. No, this will walk right up to you, make eye contact.
Right.
But because of the senses it's targeting, it circumvents our ability to define who they are,
Uh-huh.
what their intentions are with us. And so it's almost like when it is present with us and when it wants to manifest, it's not what it truly is. It's again, it's a mask, it's an archetype.
Mhm.
And so right now, what I'm more interested in than anything else is vetting them. Because again, if the phenomenon has been manifesting to us, but even in the manifestation, there are times it just skirts around
Mhm.
our abilities to not just interrogate them, right? But and I don't want to ramble, but let me dive into this little rabbit hole too. I think that it's not just covering its bases, it's covering its faces because there are bits of the new mask that are made up from the older ones.
Right.
And so within this paradigm, it's like, okay, take this archetype off, take this belief system off. What are you in the truest source of your existence?
Right.
And I don't know that we'll ever know that.
Uh,
Because,
it's
again, to do that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's
I don't want to.
fascinating that the manifestation, your own belief system about when you really want to believe in something, or when you
Right,
see something like on a bonfire, you're with some friends hanging around, and you see something going by, and you don't know what it is. And someone said, "Oh, that's a fox," and someone said, "Oh, that's a dog," or whatever. You know,
mhm,
everybody has his own perspective of what they saw. But with that comes
correct,
also with your own thoughts. What do you want to see? What do you want to believe? The other thing
right,
I'm very interesting is what does it could it have to do something with your own openness to
mhm,
willing to see these maybe it's like the spectrum of light and the spectrum of our eyesight that if
right,
we manifest and if we are opening our chakras or third eye that maybe we can see more of the spectrum so we can see these entities better and they
right,
can communicate better through us because we are more energy or
right. Yes, and this gets back into the initiatory practices. I've said this before, I'll say it again, that the occult is not a bug in the phenomenon, it's a feature. It's one of the more preferred ways of communication between us and this intelligence. And so that's where, as of late, I've been focusing on that interconnectivity and saying, okay, how did our ancestors perceive them? And what are these magicians truly at the heart?
mm-hmm.
Right? What are they? Are they themselves portals in which the phenomenon can manipulate consciousness and then use that, not as the driver, but as the vehicle
Uh-huh.
to where now they have the immortal portal to manifest in this dimension. This is what the call it's Lee was researching, just the host of government officials. But what I'm doing now is kind of looking at the layers, these sedimentary layers of calcified deceptions they've been giving us, spoon
Mm-hmm.
feeding us throughout history. And so, as far as I can tell, our ancestors were first told by the phenomenon that they were deceased loved ones.
Mhm.
And so if you look at the funerary rites in Mesopotamia and Syria, you see that the first altars were built to them. And somewhere within that cultivated relationship, they gave our ancestors information, insights into another world. And so, from the dawning first manifestations, there was the altar, there was the cultivating of a relationship where you give me something and I will give you something in return. And so, what's most alarming to me about this is regardless of any postulations, of any theories and hypotheses, if we go back to the root system of the phenomenon in recorded history, that's where it began.
Right. But we
So,
can't touch base on
without
when that was.
Uh, yeah. So I'm leaning towards the very first death, but we can't record that, and I can't prove that, right? But I mean, we're looking at the early and late Iron Ages. I mean, in the Old Testament, for those bibliophiles out there, right? The Old Testament times in antiquity, where I should say times, the Old Testament period, where something was present and it masqueraded as angels, demons, deities, demigods, and then ancestors. And so if you look at the funerary rites, especially even the Katamua inscription that was dug up in 2008, yeah, okay, I'm dying. My soul is going to be inside an image of me.
Mhm.
Now we're getting to necronetics. My consciousness is going to leave this biological avatar and it's going into another image of me. And so now you have the apparition possessing something that looks just like the body, but it's different a little bit, but it looks like what they just left. And so it was in that framework that you suddenly have the emergence of conjuring and to where they gave us ladders made of letters. Here's what I want you to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
Why am I doing this? I don't know. I feel like it's downloads, right? I'm going to go out into the certain location and geographical area in Syria. I'm going to do A, B, and C. Where did you get that information? Well, it came through me. And so then we see, and I'm telling you, to me, it's like the overlords, right? That's the only term I have right now. Uh, Ambassadors of the proto intelligence, but you see them seeking community, communication. And from that moment, you start seeing the emergence of sacrifices, altars, blood ritual,
Mhm.
sex magic, right? And in the incantations that was then or incarnations. And so here's my point. Regardless of the masquerades, masquerading masks they've employed, there is a base note at the root of the phenomenon that's
Mhm.
interreligious across cultural. Regardless of what we want from it, there are certain things they want from us. And it's both initiatory and it's communal. Even the God of the Bible, if you want to go there. And some people are going to watch this like, okay, we're waiting for Nathaniel to touch on this. It's the same methodology, right? Bring me an altar, go to a high place. And so at this point in my research, I'm asking myself, what is it? If it is not purely demonic in the sense of, horns and hooves, if it's, if we have, abandon the ETH, the extraterrestrial, what kind of an intelligence can use both of those as archetypes and still be present with us in this world?
Right.
That would mean we're not just talking about entities flying around in spacecrafts, or no,
No, no, it's
something is different, and it's very wrong here.
it looks like um I picture it like the ether, something that you
So,
can see, but it's still there.
oh
And
yeah.
maybe it's like sometimes glitching, and of course, time doesn't exist.
Mhm.
We have a time as humans nowadays, like okay,
Right.
it's isn't that time, but there are so many levels on time, and that's what you see when these um ghost appearance or poltergeist is most of the
Right.
mostly on one time spectrum of the day of or the year or the month, whatever, that they're going to
Mhm.
show up. So what if this hard drive of reality or
Mhm.
the hard drive of ether
Mhm.
is manipulated, or maybe a little bit flawless, so it glitches, and then we
Oh
see the
yeah. Yes. We see the black cat, Neo, right?
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, my friend. That's 100% true. Yeah, and so what it means is okay that sometimes the reality, like you said, it glitches enough for us to notice it.
Mhm.
And so then it's like, okay, is that their intention?
Right. And is it
Right?
that they want to be seen, or I think Shane Jones pointed out that I think he had a experience where he was doing research in a haunted house,
Mhm.
and the entity that showed up was afraid of him because he thought that he was the ghost. So in the
Oh,
time layer,
yes.
yeah. So what if, well, not what if, time doesn't
Mhm.
exist, but when you show up on a several on an occasion, pitch pointed on a minute, on a second, on that day, there in that moment,
Mhm.
and you see something like, oh, that's, let's say a ghost, for example, but
Mhm.
that ghost sees in his time and his dimension you
Right.
as a ghost.
That's actually, yeah, it's weird. Andrea Perron mentioned that one time. She said that she experienced that same manifestation at the Conjuring House, which, there are some people that would say, okay, well, I don't believe in this encounter or I discount this experiencer. That's
Mhm.
fine until you have a million others or 1,000 others that come and substantiate it. Like that happened to
Right.
me. You can call this person crazy, but I know I'm not crazy. And yeah. But there are glitches, and that's what perhaps the strangest thing about all of this is that if the phenomenon can construct or create physiological constructs, if in times past we've made eye contact with it, but didn't know what it was,
Uh-huh.
interacting with us on a personal basis, then it's like, okay, well, then how much power over reality does this have? And this, again, this gets back into the portion of our existence that they're targeting. I mean, if we're dealing with a species where it's a cognitive interface, interfacing with us, but they can also monitor our belief system. I'm talking like I had a experience I was working with where the manifestation occurred when she was a kid. So the entity manifested, and I think I probably told you this last time, where it's her favorite cartoon. And so, yeah, okay, fine, my favorite cartoon, everything's kosher, everything's good. She goes along with the entity and its intentions. Then later on, she grows up, but then they manifest again as the same cartoon character. And so you see where sometimes the program lags. And it's fascinating because it had to improvise.
Uh-huh.
And when it improvised, this experiencer said that it started moving its eyes. Now, this again, this is freaky. This is this is why I'm not satisfied with the ETH or the demonological approach, whatever. Something's very wrong about all this
Right.
because it started using its eyes to measure her belief in its image. You know what that sounds like? It sounds like the root system, the dawning first breaths of idolatry.
Huh.
Believing in the image, and by believing in the image, it creates and it opens a portal for manifestation.
Right.
I mean, going into these case studies, especially with an incubi succubi literature, over and over and over again, is replete the same behavioral pattern,
Mhm.
manifesting as something. And then it wasn't just, okay, the experiencer witnesses the cognitive interface, but the experiencer had to believe in it. And then from believing in it, then it was almost like the phenomenon stepped into the role and it was permissive will. So this is the symbiotic relationship that I'm doing my best to articulate as of late. It's like, okay, what exactly are we dealing with? What kind of a species would traverse light years and then test our belief in the image it's manifesting as?
Mm.
Let me go down this rabbit hole. This is why I believe that the Vatican has come forward with a kind of redefined series of principles how to test apparitions. Why? from my perspective, my friend, I 100% believe that was a part of disclosure. Because
Right.
if the phenomenon can have a conversation with you without you knowing who you're talking to, now it can start to use and employ revisionist history, where it can now redefine doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
It can actually redefine tradition and take centuries of teachings, of mystical tradition, all that, and then kind of tilt it its way
Uh-huh.
without our ability to vet it. And so the Vatican's saying, listen, not everything that appears love and light is. Number two, not everything that appears as an angel is, which, believe it or not, it's kind of landing right in our lap. It's kind of right in our wheelhouse right now.
Right.
But I hope this making sense, man. But yeah, so somewhere in this belief system, it causes me to believe, how I should say that. Number one, that it's more centered around idolatry and antiquity
Huh?
than some would like it to be. And just like this intelligence did in the Levant, it's authoring its own mythology, covering its faces, wiping memories, and perhaps when it doesn't want to be seen, it isn't. But even when it does want to be witnessed, can we trust what we're seeing?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That, well, that one almost got me out of the whole field. It's like,
Well,
what's the point?
yeah, yeah, but the more questions that you get answers to, the
Mhm.
more questions that you have, right? The more you know that you don't know.
Right.
And especially, I don't know how old is it, like ufology, demonology, is it something
Yeah.
like developed the last couple of centuries, or is it like thousands of years old that people were
Yeah.
fascinated with that?
Well, I mean, modern ufology started in like the late 50s
Right.
as we know it. Yeah, in terms of their, and I may be wrong on that specific date, but in terms of MUFON and congregation of researchers coming together and saying, okay, we're going to create a group. Um, but here's the problem, though. I mean, if we're looking, okay, let's go back to some of these case studies. We have pilots now that are coming forward saying that um, they're witnessing crafts that are not physical.
Uh-huh.
They're not. There's footage, and Steve Marrow shared this in one of his lectures. It's incredible, where either our government or his, they had these UFOs in the sky, lights. They shot missiles at them, and when the missile hit them, the came back together again. The UFO, the missiles went through them. They dematerialized and then materialized back to the same exact shape they were before. One diver came through and said that they were investigating the ocean floor and they turned and they saw a UFO with occupants on the outside in the ocean trying to fix the UFO. So again, this is why I'm leaning more towards the Gnostic view of the phenomenon, because I think we have been so convinced that an invasion is, biological avatars landing on the White House lawn. I don't
Hmm.
think we were prepared for a parasitic species to invade reality,
Oh yeah.
zooming into the very fabric of existence and then placing themselves into that, carving out space time, and then showing up. This is
Could it be a
that.
life form that the
I love
things
that.
that we see aren't the things that we see, but it's a life form? Like when you first in your life see a lizard and you want to take him by his tail, and all of a sudden the
Right.
tail is gone and he runs off, or like when you
Mhm.
chop off the chicken's head that he's gonna run off, that it's like a life form instead of something that we think we see.
Yes. Well, I'm leaning towards the life form of something. But then again, I mean, if these are like Nigel Turner had posited that these were biological avatars, but that they were almost like ambassadors, robots of another civilization, but that civilization died off. And so now they don't know what else to do. They just do what they've always been doing. That's one theory. But getting down to the brass tacks of it, yeah, it does seem like they are not just not just manipulating our perceptions, but lying to us in the sense that okay, yeah, to invade us, they have to shoot planes down,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're bleeding and leaning into that 70s or even 50s narrative of invasion. No, but if this is invaded reality itself, like I said, to where we're driving down the road and we see something and we think that belongs,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't. It doesn't. That's not a car. That's not a plane. That's not a person. It's the phenomenon. It
Right.
is an extension of this intelligence that is coexisting with us. This is why I also believe the government knows this, and that's why the hybridization program never really did work on me because I'm like, okay, what? Right? I'm a star seed. Okay, tell me how you're. And forgive me, people are gonna watch this. What do you mean? And I'm not like poo-pooing anything or anybody specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that the hybridization program is a little bit too tangible.
Uh-huh.
When people like Nick Redfern and other researchers, specifically in our government, when they've been visited by these entities, it was quite literally materializing and dematerializing at will,
Mm.
which again takes all of our notions of physics, just shatters them, snaps them in half. This is why I'm saying that if an intelligence has the capability to string us along through thousands of years, constantly incarnating into different archetypes,
Mm-hmm.
that would make sense as to why it's not just outside of the room; it's outside of the house.
Right.
It is, yeah. So that's why I'm leaning more into the simulation theory.
And if you take in mind that, it, well, scientists say like uh 3/4 of the earth is water, and we
Mhm.
discovered about 5% of that. Well, first of all, you don't know what 5% is if you don't know what 100% is, right?
Yeah,
S-
yeah. You
s-
can't quantify that, right?
no, exactly. And if you see like some species, like some octopus can uh hide themselves with colors like a chameleon, but also
Right.
with adapting into the environment. What I want to point out with that is that maybe we think that we are superior in our nature because we have thoughts and we can talk to each other. Of
Right.
course, animals communicate with each other too, but they don't have thoughts. Like a bunny doesn't have a thought like or emotions like, oh shit, that bunny is screwing that bunny, so I gotta find another bunny. You know, with stuff like that.
Yeah, it
They
starts
don't
doing its
have that.
hair. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
All right,
So
how's it look? Yeah.
maybe Bugs Bunny does that, but it's a character,
Oh, he
right?
was slick Rick. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's way different.
right. But the thing is, maybe there are other life forms on this planet
Mhm.
that are not been shown yet to humans, or maybe now that we are more people and with more recording devices. Let's say
Mhm.
20 years ago, almost no one had a telephone that they could record or make a picture. And
Mhm.
even on the pictures on 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you saw some things popping up that you couldn't see with your naked eye. So the
Absolutely.
question is our eyesight so advanced or maybe so little advanced compared to the
Yes.
things that we have nowadays when even the Mandela effect is something that's like a timeline we go through that all of a sudden all of the monocular guy of the binoculars of the monopoly guy are gone,
Mhm.
you know, just like and Berenstein and Berenstein, just like what
Right.
the, you know, there are so many things we can explain but still they are there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're present with but absent from. And it's possible that what we are researching in its entirety, right, is just what they want us to know. the
Mm.
direction they want us to go. And so this is why I consider just hanging up my hat and just leaving it entirely, is because, you know, there's we have so many blind spots as a species, so many of them.
Mm.
And yet when these beings manifest, I mean, we're talking about entire families being placed in suspended animation. They had no choice. Betty Luca, when they walked through her door of her house, and she turned around and her entire family, right? Again, we've got to put ourselves in their position. Believed in God, right? They had everything we would ever consider to be religious. Everything was in place. They had allegedly had free will.
Mhm.
Everything that made them a human was there, and yet they were statues. And they are there presenting themselves. Hey, how are you doing, Betty? Right? And this is almost like Westworld, wherein, yeah, everybody's paused.
Right.
They will not remember this.
Like the
And
Men
then
in
the
Black, like
yeah,
well, all the stuff that you see that they are pointing out in movies, and of course
mhm,
they have to tell something, like, "Oh, he told you so."
yeah,
But and even Total Recall, that with Arnold Schwarzenegger, that he goes to other planets and stuff like that. But there's
mhm,
so many things coming out nowadays that you just like, oh, wait a minute, we were talking about that 10 years ago, but that was a conspiracy, and now all of a sudden they make a movie out of it.
yeah,
So, you know,
oh yeah,
um, the powers, the between air hooks, uh, they're fascinated by the thing that maybe they know and they like it that we don't know, but they give us like
mhm,
breadcrumbs and
right,
calling us stupid names like conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. I'm a critical thinker. And when I'm listening to topics like you talk about, Nathaniel, these are something that's fascinating, it's interesting, it's something like, okay, what about if you, just like we did the last time, um, feed each other on the topic, so
right,
you go further with the steps. But I can imagine when you um into this topic that you're quite isolated from all of reality and all of social context, because a lot of people don't want to dig into that, or don't
oh
even
yeah,
grab just like a little bit what you're doing, right?
yeah, absolutely, my friend. And there have been times when and this is not in terms of like the phenomenon was malevolent towards me. I mean, there have certainly been those cases in times past, but where I've stared into the abyss and looked over the edge. And yeah, it's easy to just clock
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
go get a job stocking shelves and never touch this again. Because the closer we get to it, the more we realize that this is not reality, and that whatever they are, they have access to our houses, our cars, our bodies, our consciousness. Right. This is something that the authors within antiquity, they tried to articulate, like specifically within idolatry. They said, okay, this is actually in Psalms. Again, I'm not making it religious, but
Mm-hmm.
there are certain
But there are
writings,
some, yeah, there are some
right?
things
It's not
touched
like,
on in
yes,
some books.
thank you.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, that's too religious. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Who are we building altars to? I'm sure that's not religious either, right? Like,
Right.
what? Nothing to do with it. No, no, Parsons. No. But yeah, but basically these authors were trying to explain this relationship, the symbiotic relationship between us and them. And so, and even Irvin Fiegel touches on this, where in order to get rid of one demon in a haunted house, you go to an artificer of metal and they pour this image into a mold, and they take that image, place it in their home. That image will scare away the other that's
Right.
manifesting in the house. And so David is trying to articulate this the only way he knew how. And he begins the text with, in the Hebrews is mind blowing, that an idol molds a man. But in
Ha.
King James, right? In King James version, it says that a man molds the idol, and then it explains how he does it. It's actually in Second Chronicles. So, but anyways, the author is trying to articulate here is this relationship where long before the man goes out and molds the image of the statue, the entity wanting to become incarnate has already molded the imagination of that man, projecting
Wow.
its image into the mind, and then using the hands and using that individual to become incarnate into this dimension.
Ha. It's the
So
same with
there,
the things that you point out with the staff and stuff like that.
there we go.
Right?
Yes, yes, 100%. This strange, I mean, it's very strange, but it's not just that we are avatars, and it's not just that we are independently creating thought forms,
Mm-hmm.
because now this is profound. But if we can be thought for, and right, and if we are in fact creating thought forms, then the entity thinking for is the one shaping its own form.
Right?
Does it make it sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that also has to do with the manifestation what we talked about, right?
Right, the
So
symbiotic relationship.
you create
Yes,
your
yes,
own
yes, yes.
reality by
There we go.
manifesting it, by believing in it, by your deepest desire, your burning
Right.
ambition to be that person or whatever you want to be.
There we go.
And the mirror tells you that you are going to get or are being that person or not.
Right. It's this again, this weird paradigm of I'm thinking, hold on, man, my dogs are going nuts. You can edit this. Hold on real quick. You hear
Yeah, yeah,
that?
no problems.
Oh my God, dude. Hey, I want to show. You guys show. There we go. That's all I had to do, brother.
Oh, that's it.
No.
Oh, I'm not going to edit that out.
You're like, dude, I've been waiting for a day and 40 minutes on you. So no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No,
Uh,
dude. But yes, this again, he's doing his best to not just comprehend, but to communicate this symbiotic relationship between us and them. They may not be an extension of us
mhm.
purely, but they need us to become them. So there is this independent existence, but then there's also this need of theirs, right? If they wanted to be absent with from us, then just be absent from us. You don't have to be present with, but then absent from.
Right.
So their very presence in our world, it implies a want or a need.
Hmm.
And what I'm trying to demonstrate today is simply that, yes, the cognitive interfaces are deeply interwoven into the fabric of our consciousness. And that's why it's constant. Like, okay, yeah. And this is, Cameron, other researchers have talked about this, where, if you go into a haunted house, you're a demonologist, horns and hooves. If you're a ghost hunter, it's a ghost. If you're a ufologist, and that's a theory I've been looking at, and I'm thinking at first, I'm like, I don't believe that at all. But there are times when it plucks out pieces of us and molds its image. And
Right.
then that's where it's coming to and coming through. And that's what some of these authors in antiquity were trying to tell us, that it's not just you molding that interface, it's coming to you and through you.
Right.
And I know it's very ambiguous and I hate that, but
But it is,
it,
I mean, it is what it is sometimes, right? And it is
yeah,
like, uh, and Shane pointed out too, if there are haunted houses, there also could be some positive vibes that are
right.
manifesting, like, oh, I hear people, in an abandoned building, that you hear people talking, have drinks, have
Right.
music, like good things, right? So
Mhm.
and it's like that, what I said about the hard drive that's going to be disconnected, reconnecting, or showing
Right.
some spectrum of the past or maybe the future even, right?
Hmm.
Because we don't
Hmm.
know what's time anyway. So, and that
Right.
that really fascinates me. And also the thought that, um Shane pointed out, he was in an abandoned haunted house with like a facility,
Hmm.
and they took two two uh, pieces of equipment with them.
Hmm.
When they did that at night, things happen in their house. So
Hmm.
it's not only the time and place, but also, and you can see that also in witch boxes and stuff like that. What you know, when they put on the occult seals for
Right.
entities like a doll and stuff like that, like they put some entity in there. Don't touch it again. You can see it on the in the Egyptian sarcophags and stuff like that. When they open it up, people die and stuff like that. You can say it's a
Hmm.
mold, it's a whatever, but it could be also like people wanted to get this dark energy or these dark forces
Hmm.
into something, and he knew how to do that. Don't touch it.
Hmm.
We buried it. And all of a sudden, 200, 400, 5,000 years later, you know, you beep, 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 beep with a metal detector on the land, and you find a box. Oh, let's open that. Oh,
Hmm.
shit. Don't. Yeah,
Absolutely.
every
Yeah.
time when I see a
There's
video on YouTube, when I see some hexagrams and pentagrams and stuff like that, don't open up that box. Don't.
It's real. It's real. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's real. These are insights into another world. And the power mechanism, the control mechanism often employed by whatever these things are, it's like they don't want us to know.
Hmm.
Like the case study with the remote viewer I had, the should I say alien ritual, alien sigils that were on his skin. I sent the photographic evidence to other practitioners. They didn't know what to do with it. And again, it was almost as if that which we were given or they were given as mages, magi, whatever we want to call them, they were little bits and pieces, breadcrumbs,
Huh.
right? Whatever these things are operating in, it's completely different. And this is where I'm at now. I'm currently going back through fetal magic and just what was occurring in Mesopotamia, what were their beliefs, and are there truths, right, interwoven into some of the lies they were giving us.
Hmm.
But again, whatever we're dealing with, and just my perspective, and again, people could be like, well, I'm not seeing any photographic evidence. That's fine. People when they see my shows, they've probably already seen that. They're coming to see, is there anything new, what you're doing lately? But what I'm doing lately here is like, okay, whatever these are, they it's way different than extraterrestrial. It's way different than just purely demonic.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if we start looking at the archetypes they've leaned into, quite literally, just like I said, revising history. Where okay, yeah, there are horns and hooves. Next thing you know, we have demonologists seeing horns and hooves in haunted houses.
Hmm.
And so, there were a group of people that came out, especially within paranormal field. Oh, well, those were social constructs. Time out. We look at the way these manifested,
Hmm.
right? Those were social constructs, yes, but they were also physiological. To that experiencer, they actually witnessed that.
Right.
So then what are we dealing with? We're dealing with an intelligence that can, like I said, author its own mythology within the experiencer. The experiencer themselves, okay, yeah. Oh, it must be a demon. Like, right? Was it actually a demon? Was it actually horns and hooves? Was
Right.
that actually an alien? Right?
Because your perceptive of the thing that you see could be completely different
Yes.
than what it is.
Yes, and it's taking, like I said, portions of consciousness in your belief system, applying it to, okay, this is my interface. So it's right, it's present with us. What's present with us? The mask. The mask. What's absent from us? The source, the proto-intelligence.
Right.
And so in that way, it has interacted with our species by being in the room but invisible. Because it is using, again, it's using religion to hide. Oh, well, I saw it. Doesn't mean you saw the proto intelligence,
Hmm.
right? So this is making sense. And so, in a way, it's like, okay, why choose to be visible? Well, in being visible to you, it doesn't compromise its identity, doesn't compromise anything. And so, it's more than just manifestation, it's a mirror. And it's more than a mirror. It implies that if the phenomenon is evolving according to our awareness of it, then we can only know the phenomenon to the extent that we know who.
Uh-huh.
ourselves.
Right.
This is why, my friend, we've always had this problem in the field of we take two steps, it's five steps ahead of us.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, for every two, there's a three. And so it's constantly evolving according to why? Because it's symbiotic, right? I'm here. Well, okay, well, I'm here then. Why? Because each and every time you move, I'm moving with you.
Right.
It's a weird, I know, man. I hope this is making sense. But
It's
yeah, it's deep. The symbiotic relationship, though, it's always been there. And some of the researchers know this, especially within our own government. They're wondering why, we had airships before we had spaceships. And then once we had spaceships, then we had UFOs and UFOs and UAPs, right? I mean, even within Alexander the Great in his diary, they're talking about flying shields.
Yeah, and I
Why?
think there are some paintings from Da Vinci with
Right.
UFOs and stuff like that on it. So so
Let
the
me go ahead.
so the thing is, like, is it something that's always been there? Probably,
Right.
but how did these people look at it? Right?
Oh
Because
my
you
God.
can say probably like, okay, Leonardo da Vinci was a great painter, and inventor and stuff like that. He was on mushrooms. He did some crazy stuff, and then he saw some things in the sky. He
Yeah.
painted it, and now we see at his paintings, it's just like, oh wow, what's that? But we know now.
Mhm.
Well, we don't know nothing, but we're investigating
As
it
much as we can, though.
as
Yeah.
much we can. But there are several stories from the past before
Mhm.
Roswell about
Right.
flying saucers and stuff. Eric von Däniken pointed out with I don't know what's it called in English, but the book from Eric von Däniken, that he thought that uh, the paintings that he saw and the inscriptions from stones, like, this is an alien. Yeah, but
Mhm.
what if they always interacted with us and we were on a friendly base? We knew what they were.
Right. Mhm.
They brought us some, let's say, some knowledge and wisdom and stuff like that,
Mhm.
like the angels did in the Bible. You know that there are
Right.
some angels that gave us makeup,
Technology and
clothing.
stuff, all that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That always bugged me too. Because it's like, well, okay, if they're all demons, right? Don't wear makeup.
right. Don't go to
Uh,
war, but you know how to
right.
do it.
Right. Oh my. That always messed with me. It's like, okay. Yeah, you're right. And this whole thing though, it confounds me. And I'm getting to the point now, my friend, where it's like, okay, what if our scientific method is also an extension, right? What if, again, that in times past, this is Collins Elite research, where they have a blip on the radar, they go to it, there's nothing there. Well, it had to be physical. Why? Because it showed up on radar. But where's it at? You're passing right through it.
Right.
It should be right here. But there's nothing here. It's on the radar.
Well,
You know,
yeah.
it's not just stretching physics. It's obliterating it.
What is nowadays concerned the most fascinating research there is
Mhm.
on the topic of demonology?
I don't know. So we have basically, I mean, you have the evangelical model, which it is Nephilim, and we have the study of giants, which to me is the hardware. We don't have much study on the software.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, which is a consciousness. And by the way, if we are dealing, which I got to answer your question, but you know me, I'm an ADHD guy, so I'm like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah, me
Trent.
too. Skip
But
this branch
if we
legs.
take all this, yeah, I know, that's all. No, no, wait a minute. Oh no, Nathaniel. But yeah, we're looking at the Nephilim. We're looking at the hybridization program. Why couldn't this be just an antiquated idea of AI or consciousness? And this is what because I'm going to be constructing a lecture on necronetics. And then my second book is going to be on necronetics, which is centered around self-replication of species.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're looking at my current model, which it encapsulates everything, I'm coming from the perspective This is just for now that at least some of these beings are discarnate. And that's why I have located virtually every nuance of demonology within one esoteric rite. And that was transferring consciousness from one body to another. Pregnation, possession, all of the above. It's so placing my soul or their soul, the practitioner's soul, into another fetus and then taking the fetus for its own.
You wrote a
All of
letter,
that.
you wrote a piece
Yeah.
of paper where it was in one practice, so many things came through
Oh
that
my
you
God.
can't deny it. That, you know,
No. Yeah. It's like, yeah. It's like a prescription. You know what I mean? Okay, what is this? What does it consist of? Okay, all these ingredients. Well, it's impossible. When once you combine them, what do you have? You have this. And so, and again, that's another interconnectivity with the occult. The occult is not a bug, it's a feature. And so if we're continuously looking for, for science and say, okay, scientifically, what are these? It's like, okay, well, scientifically, what's a spirit?
hmm,
Scientifically, why do they want altars? Those questions cannot be answered. So we have to have both of them. But anyways, now what I'm looking at, okay, self-replication of species. But if these are discarnate, then this would be a breakaway civilization. If they are discarnate, then this also would be a form of AI, but it's almost inverted, where the body itself
mm-hmm.
is artificial. The
But
real thing there is consciousness. I'm just toying with it at the moment,
yeah,
but
but the real crazy stuff nowadays is that someone programmed like
yeah.
an Alexa, for example, the AI Alexa, like a
Mm-hmm.
stupid little cube that could learn from everything that we ask. She's gonna be on the internet. She's scattered all
Yeah.
around the place. She's collecting data, and with that data, she evolves more and more. So when you first asked some questions to Alexa, you didn't know what the answer was because it took
Right.
quite some time, and it was like briefly like what color do you like, or what's the weather going to be, stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
nowadays you can, if you see AI like Chat GPT and stuff like that, it's so mind-boggling what it
Oh
can
yeah.
do, and especially when two people have a telephone and they
Mm-hmm.
both put up like Chat GPT, and both their
They
bots,
start
the
talking.
AI started to, it's gonna be
Yes.
the holy shit.
Oh
So
yeah.
what are
Yeah.
you into? Oh wow, I'm into the data system, blah blah blah, and stuff like, whoa, that's mind-boggling. But because and coming back to your point, what you said,
Mm-hmm.
what if there are let's say entities or creatures that know how to gather energy, gather knowledge via these things that are much more advanced than we are because we think we're so superior, but we're
Right.
not. We're
Right.
just species, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't compare each other to animals, although we are just one species of animals walking around, but we want to define ourselves as humans. Oh, we're separate
Mm-hmm.
from all the things, but everything on this earth, flora and fauna, has a way, a purpose, and a surviving mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a lot of things do not have emotions, although I think like trees and mushrooms and stuff like that, they have some consciousness, just like we
Mm-hmm.
have. But because we can think and we can speak, we think we're superior to them. But that makes no sense to me. Because when you think about that, you cut off so many branches of what could be possible about other creatures, about other creations of nature, that
Mm-hmm.
maybe we're just like the light spectrum, we're just in the middle, right? And you got
Yeah.
then several plants and animals that come before us, and some that are much more advanced, like some octopus. I mean, these are fascinating creatures.
Oh yeah. I think we had a conversation about that a while ago. Right? Where it could just change colors and blend in with its environment.
Yeah,
Well, what is that? You're looking at it, you are, but you're not seeing it. That's what's
exactly.
crazy. You're seeing it. It's weird, it's a paradox. But Yeah, so I'll tell you what I'm doing lately, and this is new research. If that's cool, because
Yes,
it's
please.
along the
Yeah.
obviously along the lines of what we're doing. So if we're going back into antiquity, there was this self-replication of species constantly. You know, we can look at it through various lenses, Nephilim, hybridization, all of that. But when you go into the occult practices, this is coming from just various demonologists, one of Bernard of Gordon. But anyways, you had the practitioner, and she was called the Baal Ob. That was the working title of a necromancer in Mesopotamia. Baal Ov. Sometimes it's
Okay.
pronounced Ob, Ov. And this phenomenon consisted of an avatar, a person, where usually it was a female. She would be given a insights into this individual that's communicating with her. So you like, okay, Rob, we'd be talking, okay, this is so and so. I'm getting an impression, right? So I'd be talking to you.
Mhm.
And so that was one definition of the oath. That was the medium, the person, the medium.
Right.
That's one definition. The second definition is the ancestor. She's the
Like
ancestor.
channeling.
Yes, themselves. So first it's the medium, the ancestor is communicating to and through.
Uh-huh.
Then the second definition is the entity itself. The third definition, my friend, is the material image of the entity.
Right.
So in one concept, you have the medium, which is the instrumentation,
Hmm.
amplifying the voice.
Right.
Then you have the possessing entity, which is the actual entity. And
Right.
then you have the material image of the entity's apparition.
Huh.
Now, I found that. I combined that with what I realized and kind of sought out with in respect to what is it, the Apocrypha of John, where it was making bodies in its own image, right?
Hmm.
And then possessing them. I am
What's happening with you? You
right.
saw that?
What was that?
I
Uh-oh, what I
saw
missed?
light works, fireworks going after you. You were just like blended out, and fireworks started when you started to
Oh,
stop.
that's Zoom. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Celebrate and all that weird stuff.
I don't know. We're gonna see it on a video.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh no, man, that's weird. But a lot of times within demonology, not you and I, but we in the field, we always think, okay, that grandpa's demons are today's demons, or at least that intelligence and antiquity. Oh, okay, it's doing the same thing now. It's not.
hmm,
What we're looking at now is it's almost in the creation of the avatar. It's creating the medium.
huh,
In that avatar is the medium. You also have the possessing spirit, which is the second definition of the oath, the consciousness possessing it. Then you have the physical body, which is the avatar itself. So, in all three definitions of the Obe, we have the hybridization program. And so now you have the phenomenon facilitating its own disability of being. I have an avatar that I can possess like the medium in antiquity. This is making sense.
yeah,
It's all of the above. And so we're thinking, and now we have a model currently where we say, okay, it's AI. That is in a sense. But what we've done, we've allowed the phenomenon to indoctrinate us. Okay, well, it's purely, oh my God, it's paying all that. What if this is a form of AI? Where yes, and again, the instrumentation is the material body itself.
right.
And so, like, okay, if we look at a robot, what do we have? We have the material avatar, the image of the consciousness possessing it.
Hmm.
And so, what I'm suggesting here is that the occult connection evolved into where in times past it was I'm possessing a woman or another body to communicate, but in the creating of its own fetal tissue, in the embryonic possession,
Hmm.
it has
Hmm.
its own medium. It has its own material image, and it is in fact that ancestor you're witnessing, all in one body. And so this is why I believe that that's what they were trying to tell us, our ancestors, these experiences. Okay, look, yeah, we're in the first century, even before that. Yeah, we're in the late Iron Age. But what they were trying to teach us today is exactly what we're witnessing in real time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not iRobot, it's not Neuralink in a sense. It's literally whatever the species is. It seems like that a little bit, but it's
Right.
literally the replication of its own existence.
Mm-hmm.
It all bodied up in one. Yeah, it's the ancestor that's the possessing entity. Yeah, is it the biological avatar? Absolutely. But it's also amplifying that entity's ability to communicate. Matter of fact, in antiquity, specifically within Syria, and I said this on Paul Sinclair show a while ago, is that they were being visited by what were called eye idols, or actually entities that they made idols after. And now we're getting the ancestor, right? And this is in the same corner of Syria that they're building altars. It's crazy stuff. But essentially, what happened was they were being visited by a species that had told these practitioners that we're your ancestors.
Uh-huh.
And so, remember when I told you about statues,
Yeah.
right? Molding the mind of the man before the man molded the image.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
another case of this, where they created eye idols. They began to worship them. Now, what do these eye idols look like? Large eyes, no mouths, and no ears. Why? See where I'm going? It's the same. This is the hybridization program in the Levant.
Right.
It's the ancestral worship. All of it's present. But anyways, and so anthropologists got a hold of these figurines. Look, okay, what are they? And so they had a conference, and they all agreed on this fact. This is incredible. That the reason these individuals made the images without noses, mouths, or eyes, or ears rather, is because of the way they communicated. They communicated by virtue of telepathy.
So
They
you don't
communicated with
need.
the eye. No, don't need them. So within that pocket, not just in that pocket of the world, but literally in the same time frame,
Huh.
we have the hybridization program coming in, where we have, okay, I'm self-replicating through the wombs of women, right? And the infants they're taking are the material image of the entity possessing them. Now we know why we're in talking to them, even through abduction accounts. They don't speak, they communicate,
Uh-huh.
even through the biological avatar. Why? Where does this all come from? Does this make sense? I hope this is.
I'm rattling in my brain now because I got so much information, and it makes
Yeah,
so much
so
sense.
that's what they're
Because
doing. Yeah,
why why does it show up everywhere when you have an about aliens or abductions or
right,
whatever? You know, and of course there's some programming, right? If you
right.
um there is some program, but I think also there are other species that have been discovered already, or they showed themselves, but they want to be they want to be left alone. They're more
Mm-hmm.
powerful than us. They're living on the same earth. They don't come from galaxies or whatever. That's my
Right.
belief system, right? Um, because we I was flying to America the other day. I was going to Los Angeles for the first time in my life to America,
Cool.
and I flew 11 hours. Probably your flight was also like 11 hours to
It's
Manchester.
about
Nine,
nine.
yeah.
So yeah.
So you going across America and then long distances of water.
Mhm.
Uh, Everybody knows the story of Atlantis. Well,
Mhm.
it was there. We don't know where it is, whatever. But why couldn't there be species that survive within
Mhm.
water and have like vast cities on the water and they can breathe there? Or maybe there is like like if you have a mug and you put it upside
Right.
down and you put it into the water, you have air under it
Mhm.
and you can dive into it, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there are so many possibilities about things that we just don't know. And when you
Right.
see the flight routes are all the same and the shipping routes also. So everything that's going to be, let's say, 5 miles from that route, we
Mhm.
don't know.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, it makes no sense for for Google to hire a plane and to make pictures out of that, and probably they don't want to. Uh, and if they find something that, I mean, there are very talented people with Photoshop and stuff like that. Just like, okay, don't point it out. No, Antarctica is also white, completely white. Doesn't make any sense, but we just want to paint it white.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff, and
Yeah, you're right.
it always, especially when you're just like me, ADHD, you dig into a topic, just, oh, I want to know more, and you're gonna and uh, yeah, the more you know, the less you know, the more
Yeah.
answers you have, but yeah, you're gonna touch base on some things like, oh, okay, this is this that, oh, this connects with that, what I saw the other
Right.
day, this connects
Right.
from that thing from the book, whatever. But to think that the thing is, yeah, what do we think, right? Our thoughts are so powerful. So that what when we hopped on this podcast, the thoughts of thinking that something is there in reality, or maybe some entity wants to show himself with his belief system, like he's going to manifest that throughout his way of manifestation.
Correct.
it,
Correct.
it
Correct.
just could show up, and it's
Yes.
limitless. It's limitless,
Yeah,
especially
we're not
when
at the
you
top of the
see,
food chain.
yeah, especially when you see that, okay, we discover like 5% of the oceans. Okay, third, uh, how many discovered did we discover from the land? If you look at
Mm,
China, right, it's such a huge country, like Asia in total. Only
mhm,
the cities are on the coastline. There are some spaces, there are some lands you can't go there because a plane, you can fly over it, but if you're going to be dropped there, you're going to be, that's it. We're going to
mhm.
a helicopter. It's going to take too long to get there and to get back. Stuff like that we do not know what.
Undiscovered. Yeah.
Right. So if we're talking about demons, we're talking about
Yeah.
ghosts, but also there are some like the Dark Man, Sasquatch, but these are entities that are real, right? They are uh, not like a physical form that they can show up in your house just like that. What's your take on that? That there are species that we
Oh, I certainly think that there are undiscovered species out there, definitely. My concern, again, this gets back into another branch of the phenomenon where there's only, in my mind, there's three possibilities, but mainly two. Either that these actually exist in and of themselves, they are real, tangible, material entities, or that these are incarnations of a control mechanism employed by the phenomenon to where we are you're gonna need a 12 pack after this one, buddy. You're like, what?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
To
Oh
to
yeah.
where, right, and I've done this in hunting before where I step over a log and there's a snake underneath. I didn't know it was there. And so, it's protecting its territory, get out. And the reason I suggest that is sometimes the case is because of the case with Axelrod and the Skinwalker Ranch, where he's from the Pentagon, he's investigating, just hanging out, observing more than anything. And he gets in his car on the way home. You need to get home quicker, baby. Why? Because, right, there's a dog man outside of our window staring at us and the kids. That either that's an entity that's, even if it was real, the sequence of events there is alarming.
Yeah.
Uh, to where the phenomenon said, okay, if you're coming into my personal space, guess what I'm going to do with yours?
Right.
And so this again is pointing me in a direction where it's like, okay, was that just another physiological construct? Now, here's what's even more important. We can go down the rabbit hole of what the definition of a physiological construct is, but more importantly, perhaps, is that when they went to investigate, it had carved its claws into the tree, but then dematerialized to nothing. So people don't believe me when I say, okay, yes, the invasion, it's not just, okay, yeah, they're here and try. No, they're inverting reality.
Right. And you got to, and especially nowadays, we have to be so careful what they're going to put out, what's the truth,
Yeah,
even when you're going to investigate it. And there's so many things going on, and so many timelines that cross, so many dimensions that are opened, or portals, or whatever you're going to call it.
hmm,
But also a lot of sightings, like the same things that are showing up, or species that we do not know, that are
correct.
or scared, or just want to attack you because they want to protect their family or themselves, like we
Right.
would do if we would walk in the forest and something comes up, you know. uh
You're right. You're right. And so in some ways we can kind of understand that, like I said, that control mechanism. But this opened my mind to a possible connection here. And that is that our ancestors, even back then, again, late iron ages, they didn't have hauntology,
huh.
right? They didn't have demonology. There were no UFO. They didn't have, there was no MUFON. They didn't go to a headquarters or a conference and dap it up. Hey, brother, let's get a drink and talk shop.
Mm-hmm.
No, they just had the interface between them and whatever was seeking to become incarnate. That's
Yeah,
it.
maybe
And
the
so,
church, as when they had some questions, because the church had all the answers to the questions.
yeah, yeah, correct. Well, yeah, and I'm speaking like in the Levant, like in Mesopotamia, right? But yeah, you're right. You're right. It's weird. But my point here is that, yeah, there wasn't some kind of codified law. It was just, I'm experiencing this. I'm going to write down what I experienced. Okay, it is what it is. And so their idea of this intelligence was vastly different than ours. They did not see ghosts as a separate phenomenon.
Right, they just saw what they saw, and it was
Yes,
there. It was part of their reality,
correct. Oh, yeah,
without saying or defining it like, oh, that was a bird. No, that was a squirrel that was jumping
right, right,
branches. Or was it something like, maybe a mouse, or rat? You can,
right.
just like you
Yeah.
said with the plane. And when you see it on the camera, it's like a TikTok, for example. But then
Hmm.
all of a sudden it turned out like a plane. But what is the plane? Was the drone? Was the glider? There's so many questions from your
Oh,
own
yeah.
perspective that you have to answer yourself, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
And second of all, what is going to be the reality? Because that's,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like you said earlier, you said it very aptly. Yeah, I mean, you pull on one string and it all unravels. But my point here, man, is this kind of blew my mind because I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, it diversified its intelligence in our eyes. Why? Because we would think, okay, yeah, it's not a branch from the same tree. These aren't separate branches from the same tree. No, it's
mm-hmm,
an entirely different forest. But
right,
that's what we were taught to believe by this phenomenon. But our ancestors believed that if they did not obey these entities, that these entities would turn to malevolent ghosts and haunt them. Now, what does that mean?
huh,
That means it's a single source, a singular intelligence, a proto intelligence is the word I've been employing as of late. But my point here is this. There was no this or that. It was not a dichotomy. It was a duality. And they believed that the hauntology as a field was just another arm. And it was a disciplinary action of weaponized apparitions
huh,
employed by a phenomenon that said, listen, if you don't meet me on this hilltop, and if you don't give me this sacrifice, if you don't give me a food offering, instead of saying, okay, yeah, well, there will be, no, I'm going to become this demon.
right,
Right? And so this is the structuring and social conditioning this phenomenon put our ancestors through. This is kind of circle back. This is why when people say, okay, well, yeah, this is social construct. You're right. You're right. That was inspired by what? It
huh,
was inspired. This kind of interconnects too with the dog man, right? Or the entities and right. Yeah, okay, yeah, they were there, but why were they there? Well, our ancestors wrote in ritual bowls about them. This is what we saw. And
Uh-huh.
so this was a manifestation of the proto-intelligence designed to condition them back into obedience and worship. Not separate phenomenon, not separate intelligences, one.
Right. And you see that with all
Strange.
myths. You know, we touched
Yeah.
base on that on the first episode about the Aboriginals, the Native Americans, the
Mhm.
Native Indians. That I don't know what's the real word that you have to pronounce nowadays, because every single culture or everything they every single day they have another pronouns. But you know what I mean
Mhm.
with the Native Americans.
Correct.
They all had stories that came from ancestor to the child to their age to age. They talked about myths and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
that's really interesting for me. Like the myths that's been told, like if it's going to be in Norway, if it's going to be in Africa, it doesn't matter where
Yeah.
you are. There are still some tribes and still some cultures that are telling something that their ancestors has been encountered.
Right.
Um, and when I think we are living in like 120 years now, like, oh, we have now the industrial revolution, so we want to touch base on everything so we can make it clear scientifically what it is, right? Or we
Mhm.
make
Mhm.
things, or what we don't know, we're going to figure it out. But how many things can't we figure out? Even if we have
Oh
all
my
the
God.
science programs,
Right.
all the money, all the whatever, some things you just can't think about. So when, for example, in America, when the white man came across the sea and brought us pain and misery, Iron Maiden,
Mhm.
um, when the Indians were taken off their land, also the heritage of all the things that they did for centuries was there. And
Right.
haunted things that are there can be related to the stories they still tell to their children.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and that's another fascinating fact. Like, okay, we have something like, okay, they say this and that is like a phenomenon, but all of a sudden it occurs to be something that's opening itself or connects with us, or communicates with
Mhm.
us, shows itself to us in several times, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. So yeah, they, as well as our ancestors, basically at a certain point in history, there was no way to communicate outside of what's called mythopoeic thought, where yeah, these are stories, but they're vehicles of meaning, right?
absolutely.
And so people, okay, they're just myths. Well, they are, but within the mythological narrative, these are stories of real, true experiences, you
Yeah,
know? And so
we
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 have to
put
understand
we
that.
put the stamp on it like, oh, it's a myth. So no, no, no. It's not a
Right.
myth for nothing, right? It's not like a
Oh, yeah.
story. A story you can make up.
Correct. A fairy tale. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
fairy tale. In I know it's kind of a fine line between those. People will probably kill me on that. But the thing is here is, and I've been told that by many people. Oh, well, you're just in mythology. Okay, that's fine. But now, within the 21st century, the scientific method has documented in modernity what they were telling us existed.
Uh-huh.
Guess what? I'm going to go back in time and start retracing our footsteps. And I'd say, okay, well, yeah, we know now we can prove it scientifically. What were they experiencing? And so I think that's pretty much the cutting edge of the research now, where it's not scientific materialism. It's literally a technology of consciousness.
Hmm. Hmm.
And now we're looking retrospectively and saying, all right, what does history have to say about this phenomenon? And but that's where I'm at. But more than anything else, it's like now I'm leaning heavily into researching the simulation hypothesis and asking myself why these beings have so much access to anything and everything at any time.
Right.
Because I think that if they do have that kind of access, And yet and this is and if what they want from us is to propagate their gospel or their tradition
Mhm.
or their mythos, and if in fact we are taking it's a full circle, like I said before on our last show, if our leading scientists they're not going to NASA, they work for NASA, but they're going out into the desert and they're doing exactly what practitioners in antiquity did. That means regardless of any theories, hypotheses, oh yeah, well these are okay. Where are they at right
Right.
now? And yeah, socially speaking, so that's what I've been researching as of late. I'm really going to be introducing necronetics as a field, and I'm creating a website. I'm creating.
A
I'm
book you told me
already
you
yes.
make a
That's the
new book.
second one. Yeah, that's
Wow.
the second one. But yeah, because honestly speaking here, man, I it's almost like I stumbled upon something I didn't know was there. Like I just thought I was researching incubi, succubi.
Hmm.
Then once I started getting in, again, like we talked about just 20 seconds ago, the mythology of it all, I realized that yes, it's present. And I was almost researching two intelligences,
Uh-huh.
allegedly. I thought I was researching demonology. And then what I realized was, okay, yeah, there's something here that's masquerading as that, but it's not. And I've actually caught the phenomenon in real time doing that, where it will masquerade as an entire species or an entity or mythology. And then once you threw away, okay, that's not factual, that's not rooted in history, then you're face to face with whatever this is.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I started noticing the manipulation that's taking place within our species. Right? I mean, possession to us is pregnancy to them. Well, I thought it was just, oh my God, it's a language preference, and no. That's transient.
I mean, if you look at the pregnancy of Maria and Joseph, she
Right.
was pregnant by the Holy Ghost, which was a not natural
Oh, the
occurring.
conception, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what is Jesus? Is he, you know,
These appear to be avatars that are inhabited within a system.
right?
A and I said this before, it's almost like an artificial habitat. And before one of them could exist in that habitat, they had to put on a suit and then show up. And so
Mm-hmm.
then we're a species within artificial habitat. We see two caretakers fighting over that habitat itself, wearing different suits, looking at each other. This is mind blowing. This is why, again, when you talk about the Imago Dei in the image of, the first mention of that was in Egyptology when it was talking about the ritual wherein someone would die. And in order to return into this dimension, they had to have an image to possess. This is hybridization program.
Right.
That's what it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
pure and simple. And so what they had was the image of the invisible, right? Again, the apparition within the biological avatar, the apparition possessing the medium, the apparition. That's why, my friend, there we go. Yeah, that's why I was talking about the Ob. It's all encompassing. It is the avatar, it is the spirit, and it is the image of the invisible,
Right. And an
all wrapped up
avatar
within
could be an
one body.
idol, an
Absolutely.
avatar.
It's all of it, the image of the ancestor.
Exactly. And in the Bible, it says, don't worship an idol, right?
Absolutely. This is exactly what they were dealing with.
And the funny
And they
thing is, and the fascinating thing is, fascinating is one of the words I have to use in this podcast because this is so mind boggling. When, and now my ADHD brain kicks in
squirrel.
because I want to say something like, ah, shit, I lost train of thoughts, but that's okay. Maybe it pops up in a few minutes. I don't know.
Well, so yeah, so I mean, this is why it just when I realized what I was looking at, I thought, why were they making babies in their own images?
Hmm.
I mean, and then I saw the possession and pregnancy aspect, and then I realized, oh my God, they're facilitating their own disability of being. They're creating their own mediums. It, it, it's incredible, man. But that's a whole nother show. I'll have to get my notes out and really we'll dive deeper into that the next show. But yes, so essentially that's what it was. That's why when people say, okay, this has nothing to do with religion, it's like, okay, don't tell me that, tell them that.
Right. Because
Right? Because these are archetypes they're leaning into, whether or not we want to accept it.
exactly. Why is it pointed out in scripture, in a lot of scripture, not only the Bible, but in a lot of these things, like Mesopotamian times when it, when the clay tablets and stuff like that,
So,
they pointed out like so many things that we are still mind-boggling out today, trying to figure it out. And we're living in the age of the internet and some knowledge that everyone can gain. So
mhm,
the other aspect is just like you said, like 150, 200 years ago, our ancestors didn't have the technique, and what happened is what they saw, and well, they put it in their own jacket
yeah,
or own
the
belief
only way
system,
they
right?
could.
Right. But now we have so much hunger to know
Yeah.
that a lot of things happened for the last couple of 50 years since the internet is around, that people find stuff, even if it's going to be something from the government that was been trying to hide for the people, but some hacker just like, oh, hey, look at this documents and stuff like that. So you see
Mhm,
that the agendas have been open folded, but still
right.
there are so many questions about who are we? Who are
Right.
these things, these entities that we encounter? What is our reality? What dimension do we have? Yes, some say we're living in a two-dimensional, third dimension, we're going to the fifth. What does that mean? Is it for every single being the same? Or is it some
Mhm,
beings? Why is it that some people can paranormal things encounters and some don't? There's so
right.
many questions popping up. Is it like if you level up on yourself, on your chakras or whatever, that you could open up for these things, that you're gonna experience these things? Like we touched on base before, if you do like LSD, like psychedelics, you see things differently than they are in your reality, whatever that reality is, right?
Mhm,
Because
right.
what I'm staring at right now, I see that I concern myself that that's my reality. But
Yeah.
is it?
Oh, this is incredible. Yeah. Dude, so now we're getting into consciousness itself, maybe, and I don't know, people are going to kill me for this, but it's almost a creation, right? I mean, if we look at the software and hardware relationship, specifically within AI, AI can only ask questions that it's aware to ask,
Right.
aware enough, I should say, to ask. And so within the question is baked in the programming.
Yeah.
And so this is the thing that Richard Dawkins is asking now. He's a famous atheist, and in one debate, he's like he admits he said that while he doesn't believe there is a creator, he believes that it is designed or something designed within us to ask and believe in a creator. So this
Okay.
right now we're dealing with the question of is it possible that this was the whole purpose of the phenomenon itself is to make us question reality? That the reason we're having this question now, right? And Neo with the black cat, why? In
Right.
that right, the creation of the habitat is facilitating, and then it's possible something else broke into it and wanted us to realize, hey, everything is not as it seems. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out
Yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah.
just
Just
whatever.
rambling our minds. But
But
the same thing goes
yeah,
with if you look at, okay, someone programmed AI so it can answer your questions with deep diving
yes,
into the internet, right? But if
yes,
you see like a baby is gonna be little steps feeding into its consciousness to develop the things that she,
there we
he,
go.
whatever develops in her life, so she can answer the questions, or she can answer questions or question some answers, right?
Yes,
with language, with whatever. If you see how we have been built up from a baby that can do nothing to like grown ups, we can take care of our own food, we can survive, we can
Mhm.
communicate several languages, all this stuff. That's you know we think that AI is it's just like the beginning of AI. Yeah, but we were in the beginning in the cradle of
There we
birth
go.
also.
There we
So
go. Yes, yes. How am I
yeah,
forming these words? Because of the language. How do I know the language?
right.
Because I had the ability to learn. Well, how did I know to learn? All
Yeah,
right. So there are things, right, that are built into the, I should say, the evolution of our species. But, and I'm not saying that within the certain context that most people place it in, Darwinism. But what I'm suggesting here is that this is not reality, and that whatever we're dealing with has seemingly invaded it. And in order to manifest to us, it had to invade reality first.
right.
Think about that. These are emanations and incarnations of something that had invaded just the very fabric of what we know. Everything that, yeah, I mean, from a biological, organic standpoint, down to the atom invasion, and then anatomically building itself up, and then interfacing with you and I. That's why, as of late, man, I'm just like, all right, um, will I be doing this in 10 years? I don't know. Because our
It
government knows this. They know. And
will it. Sorry to interrupt you.
okay,
Does it depend on the answers you get to the questions that you have about these topics, or is it
yeah,
about uh, the stuff that you witnessed, the vast majority of things that you come across with that can drive someone mad?
a little bit of both. One of my earliest mentors told me a story about how he was investigating a haunting, and they were taking photographs. And this is back when it was just Polaroids, and in real time, click. All right, there we go.
Right.
And he asked a question. No, that's what it was. It was writing on the pictures. And one picture said, ask me a question. And they said, okay, um, do you know English? That's what it was. How much of English do you know? Because the original ask me a question was in old English, and they had to
Uh-huh.
have somebody read it. I was like, okay, yeah. So, anyways, it's okay. Do you know English? And I said, which kind? Right? And he said, this is Dr. Michael Lynch, and he said, do you know like modern English? Hold on. Then for 5 minutes, they're taking pictures. There's nothing on the camera. There's nothing on the photo. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Finally, yes. And he asked the phenomenal question, okay, like, what do you do? I'm here for you. I've never actually shared this with anybody, man.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, what do you do? I'm here for you. And it was explained to him that it was like a call center, that there was someone outside of our reality that was monitoring, almost like on a person by person basis, monitoring us. This gets back into some of the Collins Elite research, which, by the way, wasn't exactly the evangelical model. They believed that whatever these intelligences were, they were outside of space and time, and that they were in the afterlife,
Huh.
which is not necessarily the Nephilim either. This is,
Right.
I mean, people don't realize that, brother. People come to ask me that. They'll email me like, okay, it's not the Nephilim hypothesis at all. Like what they were concerned with was that, again, there were puppeteers
Mm-hmm.
orchestrating events within our own lives leading us to believe in the illusion of control. Some days we would have that, right? Free will. I'm going to go here, go eat breakfast, boom, 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 boom. And then other days, at will, something would take place that was designed, employed by those who are not outside of the room, but outside of the house.
Right. Comes
And
back a little
so,
bit to my hypothetical when it's not real, well, a thought
mhm,
that the ether is like a consciousness and a database.
yeah.
And I think there are some, you can choose to be good or evil. You have the devil within you, and you have a godlike or an angel like within you,
Mhm,
right? So I think when you ask the good question and you connect to the source,
yeah.
that that makes so much sense to me. Like, okay, but what's the source? Well, the source is the ether. When you speak it out, words are vibrations,
Mhm.
frequencies. But when you touch the right frequency, you can dig into that source and get knowledge from it. Like a lot of people do with manifesting, right? They
Oh,
put
yeah.
an
Oh, yeah.
intention, they get into the meditation, they even can astral project or out of body experience, which I had myself. Uh, well, that was because I was almost dead, but it
Mhm.
happened. So there were layers within my own reality and dimension that I could touch based on. I was jiggling behind. I was jiggling between them, and I had
Mhm.
a choice. And only my mind, because my body wasn't working at all, physics. Only my
Mhm.
mind, my spirituality could connect to that was there. And I got a question just like, do you want to get back? Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I woke up in an ambulance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, you just kind of touched on something here. Within the ancient worldview, it was never, you can't connect with the beyond. This goes back to the idea that reality itself was hijacked. They're they're kind of evolved a tradition and belief. Whereas, yes, you can transcend and gain insights into another world that would influence ours. But somewhere in antiquity, there arrived another species,
Huh.
and that species was outlawed. If you do appeal to the discarnate, don't appeal to them.
Huh.
Why? This is this again, right? This bleeds, it's kind of, yeah, bleeds into the theory that yes, we had reality, then the invasion of it by something else. That this gets back to Crowley's work, where he was kind of bastardizing Brahman the Mage, Jewish mysticism, and deconstructing and then reconstructing these incantations. And in a way, even if his guttural invocations were accurately uttered, the way the incantations themselves were structured should have never been successful.
Mm.
This is what keeps me up at night. And because they were,
Yeah.
okay, it's the equivalent of giving a child a phone and saying, here's the phone number to me, right? And then boop, 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 they mess it all up.
Right.
Someone else answers the phone. Hi, I'm Nathaniel. And now you have the courting of the human condition to where whatever that is on the other end of the line wants to become incarnate. It should not have worked. It should not have worked.
Well,
And yet something out there noticed a light in the distance.
right, like a receiver, antenna, medium,
Yes.
all this. Oh.
and a moth to the flame. Here they are. What are they? And this is what blows my mind. Yeah, okay, sure, you can do A, B, and C, but there's something out there that answered the call. And as far as I can tell, it's everything. And because it's everything, it's nothing.
Right. And nothing is everything.
We don't know what it is.
No.
That's its intention. It's built in, baked in to their incarnation. Man, I hope this made sense. We talked about a lot of stuff.
Yes. Yes. Oh, man. Nathaniel, it was a great episode again. We touched base on so many
Thank you.
things, but
Right.
the thing is,
Oh my God.
I like it when we feed each other the new things.
Yeah. This
Uh,
wasn't an interview, brother. This is us drinking a beer over chicken wings. That was
yeah,
it.
but that's disorganized productions. That's how it should
I
be, I
love it.
think, because otherwise,
Right.
when you touch base on your newest research, which you did now a few times,
A little bit.
a
Mhm.
little bit exactly, but when you do that, when you jump on another podcast, they all have the same Nathaniel Gillis. But now
Yeah.
you know, I hope that the listeners agree with me that, oh wow, it's not only this little
Oh,
spectrum of what he believes or what he researched, but it goes so beyond everything, and you have to connect all the dots to come to a conclusion of your own
it's
plausible
there.
reality.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, that's what I like. And that's, yeah, these are deep thoughts. These are
At
but I
least they're
like that.
troubled.
Yeah,
Troubled
we could
thoughts.
talk about the weather, but
Oh, I know. It's
that's all
boring,
modeled also. It is all programmed nowadays also.
Mhm.
So,
I've heard that.
what's
I've heard
not?
that, brother.
What's not?
Yeah, it's getting stranger by the second, and I think that our government knows that. There are measures of control the phenomenon has over us that they're not conditional, you know.
Mm.
They're they're they just occur, they happen, and they're non-negotiable. That would destroy entire worldviews.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what I know people poo-poo on Luis Elizondo, but I think that's what he means when he says that it would be somber. Because if we are not, in fact, in a simulation, then we'll go down to a smaller degree here. Then that would mean that there are entire life events or cognitive interfaces that are a simulation in and of themselves, and we don't realize it, right, my friend?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why'd you
Yeah.
show up last night? That wasn't me. Who was that? Or even the Men in Black, right? Okay, I'm gonna check your gauges and all that. I'm gonna go downstairs and no, and they disappear.
Right. Huh.
So yeah, but anyways, brother, I hope I made sense. I know I since I had my traumatic brain injury a few years ago, my words aren't exactly in order. And I hate that because I'm trying to work on it because my brain is like really fast. And so my mouth has to catch up with my brain. And sometimes it doesn't work out well.
Oh man, it's the same with me when I listen back to my podcast. I,
Mhm.
I was just in the beginning of podcasting and doing it in another language because I'm Dutch, right?
Mhm.
So I
Okay.
try to speak English. But when I listen back, just like, oh my God, it makes no
Oh
sense,
man.
stumbling over my words. But you know what it is? It is what it is. And I think that we put it out a great message, a great
Yeah.
stuff to think about for the people at home that listening to this
Mhm.
podcast. And thank you for hopping on again. I really appreciate it, man. I mean, we're
No
definitely going to
problem,
do a
dude.
part three.
Yeah, I would like that. It's where I can get deeper into necronetics. I am currently now I'm structuring new vocabulary.
Right. Well,
And
take some time to
yeah,
that you're going to get into that subject. Probably we're going to touch on some fallen angels too. Maybe that's a good
that's
one
fun.
to
Yeah.
fallen angels and then necromatics. Why not?
It's gonna be awesome, brother. I appreciate it, man. You're awesome. Thank you for working with me, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you. And I'm going to put it in the show links. I got a new software, so it will be all automatically, well, a little bit more better than it was before, working on a little
Okay.
bit more professionality. Um, Thank you for hopping on, brother. Have a
Not a
great
problem,
time.
man.
And for all the listeners, no matter where you are on this beautiful plain planet, have a beautiful morning, a beautiful day, or beautiful evening. We're running for all my life with the devil on my heels. He wasn't always kind, and he couldn't fulfill my dreams. I've been running for all my life with the devil on my heels. He wasn't always kind, and he couldn't fulfill my dreams. He's a pain in the ass, black as a night. God, show me the light. He's a pain in the ass, black as a night. God, show me the light and hold me tight. For I've been running for all my life with the devil on my heels. He wasn't always kind, and he couldn't fulfill my dreams. He's a pain in the ass, black as a night. God, show me the light and hold me tight.